Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Friday afternoon. I've just shot a video and then as I was messing about with where to stand the phone, I paused it or stopped it. I think I'll just start again. What I did talk about was the writing I've done this week. And you don't want all that detail. I've been writing. That's enough to say. I'm not going to I'm not going to say it all again. And then I tried to move my phone so you could see more of Socks, who is sitting on my lap. I need a good angle where the cat can be in as well. Maybe that's it. And then this week I've been reading, and over a few days I read Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, my second Gillian Flynn novel. I read Gone Girl a while ago and really liked it, but I forgot how dark and disturbing and just plain weird her work is. This is her first novel, and I've suggested it for our book club book in a few months' time, our local group, to see what people think of it. It's really interesting about mothers and daughters and the way girls are in high school with each other, the kind of violence and nastiness and bullying. And it's quite shocking, really. Almost everything about it is quite frightening. It's very much kind of small town world, and somebody going back to a small town and not just unearthing the horrible secrets about their own family, but also realizing that the people who didn't leave home, who stayed in the small town, stayed as teenagers all their lives. And the same dynamics played out all their lives, which is something I've observed in life, and I think is true, really. Anyway, I thought it was really good. She writes in a way that just gallops along. Even the kind of the really dark stuff, you kind of swim through it. Maybe that's the dangerous thing, that you just take this on trust, this world, and sink deeper into it really quickly. But there's something about her prose which is very readable, which, thank goodness. You realize that a lot of writers really don't write readable prose. They put in obstructions to draw attention to their own cleverness or their own artiness or their own skill with language. And of course, like when I was teaching, you have to say it's not about you, it's about the story and the characters. Get out of the way. Stop waving things at us, all the special effects. Very much like when George Lucas did those daft reworkings of his Star Wars movies and put in extra monsters waving at you from the corners of the screen, detracting from the actual story, not enhancing it. Sometimes he might have enhanced it, but mostly it was just fluff. And I think a lot of writers do that. And she really doesn't. She's a good example of somebody who just gets to the chase and gets to the real salt at the bottom of the crisp packet. That's what thrillers are like. When you are looking for the last bits of salt in the bottom of the crisp packet. And there is something salty and well, actually something unsavory about the world that she paints. I've moved on to the next thing from my book bag thing for this month, and it's Prince of Magic by Linda Winstead Jones. And this is a paranormal romance from 2007, published by Barclay. I'm not sure they're still in print. I don't think they are. There was a whole series of these, and they are something I really love. I loved Barclay books, and eventually they published my cat memoir, the story of Festa Cat, in 2014. And I'd loved them for years and years as a publisher. I love their cozy mysteries, their cat mysteries, their paranormal romances, and their urban fantasies. And all these things came in series with these wonderfully painted covers, and they were A format and everywhere in shops like Barnes and Noble. I'm sure they still are. I'm sure they still publish things like this. But I'm not sure what's become of this kind of paranormal romance. I think it's become romantasy, and it's big business now. This looks like just kind of straightforward romance. And when you get into it, of course, it's not. It's like a fantasy world with sorcerers and healing magicians and fellas with swords. It's sword and sorcery in a kind of secondary world, um, with lots of kind of sexy bits and romance going on. But it's like walking into a kind of sexy version of Lord of the Rings. You know, if they called it that on the cover, we'd know. But I love that. It's a kind of book in disguise. Romantasy blows it open. It's so huge now. You know, here's dragons and warlords and magicians, and it's a bit sexy. That's the big thing now. I loved it before when they pretended it was just a romance novel, but look, here's all the dragons and magicians and wizards. I suppose because it was from a mainstream, popular women's audience. And the lie is that they don't like genre fiction, which isn't true. Everybody likes stuff in different genres. And when I wrote the Brenda and Effie books, I was told time and again by women that they love horror, they love fantasy, they love science fiction, but mostly it's not written in a way that interests them. Not character based, not funny, not real people, not older female characters. Now I think that's tipping. And there's more in that line. Anyway, I'm enjoying this. I'm a few chapters in, and it's very readable, and it's making me want to go and find vintage copies of the sequels. There's at least 2 more. I bought this in 2007. I think I was in New York, or 2008. And I was buying things from different genres, and for some reason I've never read this one. I read all of the mysteries that I got and the urban fantasies that I got, and this just seemed a stage too far. I've been put off it because it looked so kind of wispy and fey just from the cover, and so I went off it, but it's been on my stacks of things for ages. And of course, doing the book bag project each month forces me to confront these things from my book piles, and this is the next book. It doesn't matter, stick to the rules. And actually, of course, I'm right to follow my nose and buy the books I buy, because this is delightful. So far, anyway. I'll keep you up to date with how it goes. Whoops. I have bought books this week. I wasn't meant to. I bought a few Kindly things because they were on special offer. So I bought John Jackson Miller's new Batman novel, set after the Tim Burton movie, which I'd actually had on order last year in hardback, and it never turned up. But now it's reduced on Amazon, so I've got that. I'm always going to have a separate reading life on Kindle, I think, for travelling, for other stuff, when I run out of things in my monthly book bag, perhaps. So there's been a couple of Kindle purchases, but they hardly count as books. The other thing is an eBay parcel that I got. Now, the other day, somebody posted a ridiculous clip on YouTube of a singer called Jackie Trent in the early 70s, singing in a tiny TV studio in a gown with a big wig, singing to a piano accompaniment played by the composer Tony Hatch, who wrote lots of TV themes. He wrote Crossroads, Neighbours, and Emmerdale Farm, soap themes. And here was Jackie Trent singing lyrics to the Emmerdale Farm song and making it sound like some kind of smoky Tony Bennett jazz number about this, romance in the Yorkshire Dales. Anyway, it got me thinking about Emmerdale Farm, and the TV show is unrecognisable these days, I think. Although I should watch it again. It was something I grew up with when it was about the farm and about the people in the village in North Yorkshire. And I remembered that my mum had on her bookcase in the wall unit in the living room for years and years, from 77 right through the 1980s, Emmerdale Farm novelisations. And we used to buy them for her when we saw them in the newsagent downtown. They'd turn up regularly, 2, 3 a year, all by this fella, Lee Sullivan. And they were, like the Doctor Who books, I guess, novelisations of certain episodes. And I was thinking, I wonder where they went. And of course, you would have just cleared them out to a charity shop at some point in the early 1990s. But I think she had all 20 or whatever there was in the series. And so I looked on eBay because I remember dipping into them. As I've said before, my mum's wall unit bookshelf had Catherine Cookson, Barbara Taylor Bradford, Stephen King, James Herbert, D.H. Lawrence, and novelisations of Emmerdale Farm and Coronation Street. Oh, and Marie Jacobs as well, who was a writer also from, I think, the Northeast, who was quite like Catherine Cookson. And I would dip into all of these things, just idly, really. And I dipped into the Emmerdale Farm books, and look on eBay. Somebody had a parcel, didn't they, of the first 10 Lee Mackenzie Emmerdale Farm books. TV tie-ins of this period, this is like 77 to 1980, had photographic covers. And they are wonderfully nostalgic. Even though it's never my favourite show, there was something, I suppose, reassuringly dull and naff and soothing about these tea time dramas. It doesn't make them sound great, but you know that whole feeling of soap opera as a kind of soothing backdrop to tea time. I think we've lost it, really. Soap operas have to be miserable and flashy and crashy and people with guns running about. And even Coronation Street followed EastEnders in doing that kind of stuff. Maybe that's a cliched way of looking at soaps. I don't know. I feel strongly about soap operas. I love soap operas. But I wish we had soothingly dull ones where people sat around kitchen tables with pots of tea and gossiped and went round each other's houses and did more gossiping. You know, just like real life. It doesn't have to be hostage situations or planes crashing every week. Emmerdale Farm was the classic one for dropping a plane on the whole village. In 1991, some 20 years, or just less than 20 years after it started, that's exactly what they did one New Year's Eve, with this kind of apocalyptic series of episodes, with dead sheep lying on hills on fire and bits of plane. Really tasteless looking back, not so long after Lockerbie, I think that's right. And so they kind of hit a high water mark of senseless sensationalism in soap operas. Although, of course, Coronation Street had things like a tram crash in 1968, which they replicated many years later. I do prefer the quieter episodes of things, and I adore novelisations of soap operas. Also because they were away from TV, they could be not saucier exactly, but they were at least closer to being real people in the books with more fully rounded lives. We'll see. I will return to this series and let you know what they're like, slotting them in somewhere amongst all my planned reading. Okay, I'm going to go. I've talked too long. Socks is going to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Socks. Nope. Socks. No, I won't wake him up. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good weekend, and I will see you again. Oh, there's Panda in the background, look. In his fancy new suit that he got for Christmas from our friend Lynn that she made. I'm just drawing him. I'm doing a painting of him in his new suit to send Lynn. I'll see you again quite soon. Goodbye.